Welcome to the InterViews podcast.
Prima intenzione, Bobo anticipato, palla vagante, mette giù, recova, il tiro,
Welcome, Interisti, to episode 157 of the InterViews podcast, the official podcast of SempreInter.com. We are here today for the post-match reaction of Inter Udinese at the San Siro, which finished 2-1 to the visitors. Goals from Denzel Dumfries in the 17th, Keenan Davis in the 29th on a penalty, and Arthur Atta in the 40th with a strike from outside the box. As always, I'm one half of your co-hosting duo, Alessandro Raffa, joined here by Johnny Paterno, and did not take long for Inter to suffer their first extremely frustrating result of the season. There's plenty to talk about. There's plenty of reactions and takes on Culture Twitter, Inter Twitter right now. So we'll go ahead and just try to break this down to the best of our ability. I think instead of buy or sell, maybe we just talk about what didn't work, what worked. Because I saw that you tweeted, you had some positives to take away from this game. I think that there definitely are. I would say this is less a sky is falling result, more so a lot of stuff that didn't go our way, and some of it's pretty obvious who to blame. So how about we do a little what didn't work and what worked. Why don't we start, Johnny, with what didn't work? Give me the number one thing for you today that was the main reason why this result ended up the way that it did.
It's tough to really pinpoint one thing. There's a few things in my mind that kind of come to the forefront. But I guess if I had to narrow it down to the one thing,
or just whatever you want to start with.
Oh yeah, to me it's Francesco Acerbi. That's really what I want to start with. I think a lot of times that he was put in situations where he's just too slow. And he's unable to handle teams. Like if we're going to be playing this high line and teams are able to recover the ball and start the counterattack, he is just not going to be good enough, unfortunately, to be able to keep up with those, to keep his man in front of him, to be able to close down space and not allow him to create a little bit of space and separation for himself to get a shot on goal. I know Bisek was more so at fault, but I think it starts with him not closing down on Davis and then allowing that ball to be played to Atta, which it's a frustrating thing. And management was there, right? So I hope that they saw this, and even though the window is almost closed, I hope something changes.
Yeah, Acerbi was definitely a part of a defensive performance that, listen, teams are, if this is what it is, then Interisti should just sign themselves up to be to see every weekend, every time we play, a team is gonna exploit us and take advantage of the lack of pace in the transition, number one, but also let's talk about defensively as a whole, but piece by piece, Acerbi, he has lost the step. That's not that shouldn't be controversial to say. It shouldn't be something that management and or the coaching staff isn't aware of. As much as they want to say we're set in the defense with the numbers, Kivu could say he has a lot of faith in the guys. Acerbi has lost a step. These kind of battles against, for example, a Keenan Davis, a big physical striker, that used to be Acerbi's bread and butter, as little time ago as one season. They're going to kill him this year. They just are. Physically, he's not as strong. He's weak in the tackle. He's slow. It's just not going to look good if he's back there the entirety of the season. Stefan de Vrij should definitely get some minutes here. I don't think the fall off with him is as great what we're seeing with Acerbi. Even though we haven't seen him this year, I just can't imagine that, like, for what De Vrij is and for what his game is, I don't think that there's going to be a massive regression. And I kind of wanted to see him today. Let's talk about Bisek though. That was really poor. Really poor. We can talk about the number of different angles, like why Kivu chose to go with Bisek over Pavard. I think Pavard, likely could have done a better job today. I know he would have done a better job today.
Agreed.
But this is also a coach that has spoken a lot about meritocracy, and maybe Bisek's been putting in the effort in training, but today he didn't put in the effort. And specifically what I mean about not putting in the effort, the second goal where Atta has all the time in the world to shoot, I do not care if your expectation is that this guy is not a long-range sniper. I don't care about any of that. This is the pros. This is the top 5 leagues here, okay? Never should he be given that much space to exploit. Ever. That was a bad mistake in a highlight reel that Bisek has of bad mistakes. And I'm seeing a lot of people on Twitter like, he hasn't made the progression. We should have sold him. Like, yeah, I argued that the best thing to do this summer was to sell Bisek and bring in Leone. I don't know if Darmian would have left Atta with that much room, if we're being honest. Going forward, he didn't provide the spark that he usually does. This was a bad game from Bisek, and is a really good example of why management should not be standing pat on this defense. And also the other thing, Johnny, I want to get your take on this. The people that are consistently saying like Bisek should be kicked inside, to take some minutes at center back, I don't see it at all. He doesn't have like I don't think the defensive IQ to handle that position. Like, is that still an alternative for you?
No, I agree with you. I don't think that he is able to do that. If we're worried about the mistakes that he's making on the right side, now imagine if he has to be shifted in the center where you actually have a little bit more responsibility. Like, Acerbi has the brain, he has the understanding, the positional awareness, but the pace isn't there anymore. Like, it's just like you can't make up for it. Like, your head may want to do it, it's trying to tell your body to where to be or how to to close or not to close. But if you just don't have the pace, it doesn't really matter. And at this state, he just doesn't. So, but I think that pushing Bisek to the center would be a colossal mistake. And I mean, to be quite honest, it almost feels like that he should have been the one that was sold this summer. And reinforcements, maybe 2 reinforcements were brought in, although it doesn't look like anything's going to happen. But anyway, whatever. I don't think he should do it. I don't think that we're going to see any progression or further progression, I should say, from Bisek. I think this kind of is what it is. Same with like that it was with Aslani. Unfortunate, like, he had moments, he had matches where he was an absolute sentinel in the back line. He was able to score incredible, powerful headers and come through with timely tackles, but it just doesn't feel like that there is going to be much more progression, and it's kind of unfortunate because I still think that there is a bit of a player there. I'm a little more hopeful with him than I ever was with Aslani, but like you said, at this level, you cannot be making these mistakes. You cannot be, committing the same things time and time again. We should have seen a level of growth, and just haven't gotten that.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with you that there's a player there, and in fact, like, he is the prototype of what you would want from a player defensively, as far as the athleticism is concerned. 110%, the ability to carry the ball out of the back, the ability to be a weapon on set pieces. But these are high profile blunders that he's making, and I need to stress the amount of space that he let Atta have is a high profile mistake. I know it doesn't look like a handball. I know it's not like it doesn't look like some of the other high profile mistakes he's made, the penalty against Genoa late, but it is a huge blunder on his part. That's not how you play defense. And, I don't want to be reactionary, but maybe that 32 from Crystal Palace should have been taken there.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I don't want to be reactionary either. Like I know last week we were on such a high, right? We were hyping the team up. I won't say you, me for sure. It was a little tongue in cheek though. Like, I wasn't really totally going to go off of one performance, but it definitely gave me a little bit more hope. I'm not going to hit a panic button either though with this loss. There's still he's a young coach. There's things that he's going to have to iron out and have to learn. It seems that he didn't get the lineup correct this game. I appreciate the rotation, and we can go into some other stuff that he did later on in the game that I was very happy with. But yeah, this is just it's a long season. We got 36 more games. We have the international break too here, which is only going to allow the Italians to really take off, and maybe some of the French players too. But we have time, and I'm not as to be fair, I did say this last week that I don't want to overlook Udinese and get excited for the Juve matchup. Not saying that that's what happened here, but I am a little less excited about the Juventus game, considering it's going to be in Torino, and historically it just hasn't been a good place for us to go and get results. But who knows? Maybe Kivu could rub off some of that 2010 magic onto the boys, and we're able to walk away with 3 points there. But I don't even care how the game is played or that if it's not pretty. I just want to be able to walk away from there with 3 points, ideally, and hopefully be able to take that and use that as a springboard for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I to make this very clear to the listeners of the InterViews podcast, my outlook on the season is not changed by this game whatsoever. And I think today was episodes that went against us, the majority, and also things that we knew that weren't strengthened about this team, that management wasn't going to strengthen about this team, and we knew that these were going to be the the areas that we would struggle with for this season. But as far as season over on match day 2, give me a break. I didn't even think that about Milan when they lost against Cremonese on match day 1. They completely dominated that game. There were moments that went against them, and it is what it is. They bounced back the following week. Inter had a dominant start to the season, and then things did not go our way today. But that's how it is in football. The only team that's not going to happen to is Napoli, who gets a 95th minute winner from Anguissa in a game where I don't even want to talk about some of the controversy about that game because we have some of our own here to discuss. There's so much I want to talk about. You brought up Kivu. I want to get into that, but before we do that, let's just talk about. We talked about Bisek's mistake on Atta's goal. Let's just talk about the Dumfries handball. I think Sharma summed up my feelings on it pretty well here when he tweeted, should players even be jumping anymore? Because if you're in the air, your hands have to be behind your back in order for it to be not an unnatural position. I don't know many people that are able to have their hands next to their knees and to be able to jump straight up in the air. But nonetheless, the handball, it does hit Dumfries' hands. And I know that if it was, the other way, I would have been screaming for it. But there's no world where I can say that there was any intent there, whether or not that should matter by the letter of the law, whether or not that matters. I guess it is a penalty, but what were your thoughts on that specific instance?
Yeah, I didn't see that Sharma tweet. I wish I did. I think that I guess it depends on where you are on the pitch. Like in that specific area, yeah, maybe it's worth it not to jump up. You could maybe throw your leg out and see if you can kind of get in the way a little bit, but not put your hand up in the air or go up for a challenge that's kind of like half-hearted. It's a boneheaded play. It happens. Disappointed for sure. I think that he really didn't need to do that there, but you kind of just got to take it and go. The only thing I think that what really upset me more is that he tried to make his case. I think that's actually Like, nah, man, like just take it. Like, first of all, the referee's never going to change his mind. No time in the history of the world has a referee gone back and been like, oh, you know what? You made a great point. Yeah, I'll change it. That's not how it is. They always interpret it by the letter of the law. Whether we agree with it or not, that's neither here nor there. I would have, like you said, would have called for a penalty. I kind of knew it was a penalty as soon as I saw it. There's nothing else to really kind of say about it. We just hope that either rules change it some way to make it a little bit more lenient, or we, like Sharma said, we just don't even bother jumping up.
Yeah, I very firmly believe that there was no intent from Dumfries there to have his arm in a position to stop the ball. I don't even think he was looking at the ball or saw the flight path of the ball or anything like that. But also, like, I don't want to be a hypocrite. If that happened, in favor of us, like, I would be screaming penalty all day. So that is what it is. The refereeing as a whole for this game, I don't want to blame the refereeing. I don't think that that's why we lost the game today. But I do have to say, Udinese was very obviously shithousing this victory, especially in the second half. Like, it was clear what they were doing, from the time wasting, literally really slow playing everything, to the amount of men that they put behind the ball and essentially decided to play anti-football. Like, we're not going to play a game of football. We're just going to play defense, which is fine. Like, that is their right. Inter did do that against Arsenal last year, so I'm not going to say anything about that specifically. But the thing where I think the referee has a responsibility to prevent the shithousery from ruining the game is in the challenges. It's very clear, like, for example, the Lautaro on Christensen, where he puts his shoulder into him and Christensen acts like he got shot. It is on the referee to cut that shit out. That should never be a foul on Lautaro. It's a shoulder to shoulder. If you're not able to make a challenge or get into a duel because the opponent is entering every challenge, like, with the intent of getting fouled, like, you shouldn't be awarding them that. And he was doing that throughout the entirety of the game. I don't want to call for, like, home field advantage. I don't want to call for big club versus small club advantage, but, like, pay attention to what's going on here. A lot of those fouls that you're calling, it's the intent of the Udinese player in the challenge to suffer a foul. They're not going to win the ball. So it's on you to, like, regulate the game a little bit. They shouldn't be allowed to get away with that. What did you think of that style of refereeing tonight, which I thought was embarrassing?
I agree 110% with you with everything you said. It was a shithousery of a refereeing game. Like, to allow all these things to happen, like you said, the time wasting, the flopping, the seeking out fouls to be able to regain, possession and kind of stop Inter going forward. It something needs to be done about that too. Listen, I thought Christensen played a fantastic game. I really did. That's actually a center back that I was, like, watching it. I'm like, maybe this guy would be an interesting profile. That being said, that whole thing with Lautaro, I was like, oh, bro, like, come on, man. There was no need, like, to make it a mockery of it, really. Like, he's maybe 4 or 5 inches, shorter than you. There's no way he's taking you out like that. Definitely shoulder to shoulder. But then, like, how do you wrangle it in, though? That's the thing that makes it a little bit hard too. Like,
don't call those fouls. Like, the other example, Johnny, how many fouls were offensive fouls on Inter corners? Yeah. Udinese is a larger team than us. That on set pieces, they don't, in a physical challenge, they win a lot of those duels. So how is it that there were so many offensive fouls on Inter when the ball's getting pumped into the box? It can't be that that's the case. So Let's throwing himself on the floor, Christensen's throwing himself on the floor. They're not those kind of players. They're not those kind of players. So how is it that there's so many offensive fouls against Inter? It just was like, it's like the referee bought into their game and was like, yeah, they can play like this, and I'll enable it by consistently calling fouls against Inter, even though, again, I believe if you enter into a duel, like, you enter to win it, and if you don't enter to win it, it's not a foul on you.
No, 100%, man. Like, don't let that happen early in the game. Don't let it happen in the first half. Don't change. Like, I hate when refs change their style of refereeing from one half to another, or once a yellow card is issued, now I'm going to be a little bit more lenient because I don't want anyone else to really get yellow cards. Like, let's try to keep it consistent and not allow these things to kind of snowball and turn into, time wasting and a joke of a game.
Let's talk about Hakan. First game back. I think there's a couple elements to this that are fairly interesting for us to get into. But let's start with how you think he looked on a whole in today's game. First game back after missing Torino through suspension.
I mean, I don't know if you saw the interaction with Anthony Privitera from Inter Worldwide. We were talking about, I said my thing about Sucic and finally being free from the shackles of Inzaghi and his love for Mickey. That being said, it looks like it was the wrong choice to rotate the midfield and reintegrate Hakan in there. The guy definitely doesn't look focused. He doesn't look like he's really in it to be at Inter this season. You could tell me all you want, like, oh, they squashed the beef with Lautaro, everything's fine, we have nothing to fear here. I don't know if that's the case, man. I don't feel like he's really locked in, and maybe it's just shaking off rust and you want to try to ease your way back into it, but we see how this league is. We see how an opponent can take you at any time, whether it's an Udinese, a Genoa, a Parma, a Sassuolo, which we now, even though they're not the same Sassuolo, but they seem to be like a bugaboo club for us. So you need to come locked in and ready to play every chance you get. And Anthony was saying that why are we complaining about Mickey when we see the lack of interest from Hakan running around the pitch. Fair, listen, I'm not a Mkhitaryan fan. I will say I do like the way he played as an impact sub more than he does as a starter. He was definitely more lively. I felt like he was, making the right plays. I don't know, like maybe starting a game gives him brain fog and he just decides to make stupid passes, where if he's able to come in, having to chase a game, it's almost like he's a little more dialed in. Mm-hmm. But I agree. But Hakan was not good today, and I hope this isn't a trend that we see going forward in this season. Listen, the talent is there. We all know what he's able to do. There was an opportunity on the edge of the 18 late in the second half where I thought this is where he takes a wonder strike and he buries it. Crossbody, top corner. Does he do it? No, he made the right play. But the way he was approaching it, I thought he was lining up to take the shot. So. Listen, it's a long season. I know. I feel like I'm going to be saying this a lot. I know a lot of people have, have doubts on Kivu or have doubts on the Mercato and who's in and how they perform or whatever. But I'm not going to just allow this one game to change, the narrative, and at least in my mindset.
I can give this performance the out, essentially, of saying it's been a while, a little rusty, maybe not physically 100%, and that's why he looked like that. I won't give him the out of what looked like to be a lack of focus at times. You are a professional. You are starting the match. The expectation is that your head's going to be in it and you're going to be focused, which for stretches of that game, I don't think that was the case. I think that this midfield three, Sucic, Barella, Hakan, arguably a very strong case can be made. This is the most talented midfield. But Barella, Sucic, Mickey looked better. And I think a reason why is that Sucic is obviously more comfortable on the right-hand side. So the combination of like him out left and, maybe trying to work himself into getting the feel for playing on the left Mezzala played into it. just as much as Hakan not being up to speed. But I think that Sucic is more comfortable on the right-hand side, which makes me feel like maybe Barella, Mickey, Sucic is the midfield for now, and Hakan can work his way back into this team, although I haven't fully committed to that being the idea. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Look, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that Sucic had the best game. It definitely was a drop off from last week's performance, but I'm not gonna put that on the fact that he was on the left side. Yes, there may have been some instances where he looked a little uncomfortable, but I also think the style that Udinese played today made it a little bit harder for him to get comfortable. I don't think that would have made a difference whether it was on the left side or the right side. I think that they were very good at closing in on our midfield, trying to limit them to be able to break out and lead a counterattack. Barella had a tough time really getting going himself as well in this one, in my personal opinion. And I just think, listen, I got to tip the cap to what Udinese was able to do. If you're able to disrupt our midfield, which like in any good team is the engine of the team, and it allows the club to go and be able to push forward, it's always going to be, a tough case. When Hakan would pick up the ball deep in our own defensive half, boom, he had two guys on him, one on his back, one closing in on him from the front. If he was able to get that outlet pass, whether it be to Sucic or Barella, same thing. Guys were just coming and closing and not really giving you the time and space to be able to start a counter. So I will agree with you that, yeah, maybe the Mkhitaryan, Barella, Sucic midfield is the midfield that should be the one going forward. However, Mkhitaryan would clearly be still the weakest link. And do we think Mkhitaryan as a weak option is better than Hakan when he plays like this? I honestly don't know. I can't like sit here and say, oh no, definitely, or oh no. It's not it's not that cut and dry for me, basically.
Yeah. Any concerns around Sucic looking a little bit physically outmatched? Now, in his defense, Keenan Davis, who the specific action that I'm referencing, he's one of the most physically imposing players in Serie A. I didn't love the look of like him being able to body one of our midfielders as he brings the ball up 25, 30 yards on the trot. Did this game expose any concerns for you that you may have already had around the amount of steel and physicality in Inter's midfield?
Not really. I think that this is just an anomaly. Like you said, Keenan Davis, the guy's got like tree trunks for legs. He's built like a Greek god. I mean, I don't think, unless you have, I can't even think of someone that I consider, maybe like a Yaya Toure type midfielder who's both tall and strong. I don't know.
Manu Kone?
Yeah, maybe a Manu Kone would have been the good the option in today's game, of course. But I'm not going to show any concern with that. I think that would have happened to him with any other bigger, stronger midfielder, forward, whomever. If you're able to outmuscle someone, you're going to be able to outmuscle them. I don't think it's really going to matter, who you're going up against. So I think the one thing I didn't like is when he did get bodied by Keenan, he just kind of like stayed there. Now that could have just been exhaustion. Like they were kind of battling for the ball for a little bit before, Keenan was able to just kind of just brush him aside and he just went down. But it's I think it's going to take maybe a little bit of adapting to the physicality of the Serie A. I'm sure, the Croatian league is not the same level of physical play. But yeah, it's not something I'm going to be like waving a red flag for.
Let's talk about Kivu a little bit. So starting lineup again, I think maybe the move would have been to have Barella and Sucic switch places, but I don't think that that's like a glaring error that he made. I think it was obvious that you have to bring Hakan into the team after, serving the suspension last week. I think that, that's not a mistake on his part. I think he is right to have expected more from Hakan. So I don't think that there was anything from the start of the game that you can really criticize him for. I think you can actually throw a lot of praise his way for a couple things in the second half. One, Inter's attitude coming out in the second half was much better, which I would give Kivu credit for. I don't know exactly what was said in the locker room, but I would imagine that a conversation was had about the intensity last week versus the intensity in the first half. And Inter did dominate that second half and were pushing. They were not, taking their foot off the gas as far as the tackles and the challenges and so forth. So I give credit to Kivu there. I also give credit for some of the moves, but all the moves that he made. As far as the substitutions are concerned, he went, 4 in the midfield and 3 up top with Pio Esposito, knowing that, like, hey, let me get a little bit more steel in the box. We're gonna have to. They're putting a ton of men behind the ball. Like, we're gonna have to get a little bit tougher in there, and it worked out. From the couple times that Pio was able to actually get on the ball, really nice back heel into Thuram's path there in the second half. He didn't have any qualms about throwing on Boni and having all 4 forwards on the pitch. He put Zielinski in there and Mkhitaryan. Like, this was not a manager who was not going. Essentially, he played every card he had, and he didn't shy away from playing any of those cards. He didn't have the Lookman card. He didn't have the card of the Salta al Uomo. He didn't have Zalewski that can do that as well. He played every card he had. And to me, there's a significantly more amount of blame that you can place on the team that provided him with the options that he was able to play than him actually playing those options. I don't think it was stupid to have four strikers on at the same time. I respected that he was like going for it and didn't really wait long to make that happen. Pio came on in like the 65th. So I thought Kivu did what he could with what he had in front of him. What's your read on how he managed today's game?
Well, I'm a little mad that you kind of just like stole all my thunder and kind of just like touched on literally everything I was going to say and everything that I was kind of excited about. I feel like in years past, and I'm speaking specifically under, Inzaghi, we wouldn't have done this and gone all out to try to chase it. We would have brought people on, no doubt, but it would have been like substitutions that just didn't make sense. Now that you have
or
talent,
1-for-1s, not necessarily, changing the whole formation.
Yes, exactly. And now that you have talent like Pio and Boni on the bench, to see them all go on and go for it. Like I said it. I gave him a lot of credit for still going after the game. Like, not just resting on his laurels, thinking that if it's not broke, don't fix it. Keep going with the same game plan. Like you said, he knew that they were dropping, 10 behind the ball and that he was going to have to get the bodies out there, the bigger ones, to provide some targets. They were clogging the middle of the pitch, so we unfortunately had to go wide. I don't love spamming crosses. I'm sure no Interisti does. But now that you do have target men or a target man like Pio who can go up and get in, I was very upset with that Bisek kind of took that one header late in the game away from Pio, who was behind him. Unfortunate, but it is what it is there. I thought Zielinski came on, did some good things. I kind of wish for this game, the way they played, I thought Di Marco had a good game for himself. I wish that he would have been the one, though, that was on in the second half that you could bring on, because I would have felt better knowing you needed a goal. If he was the one, having to cross from the left side or maybe even take a shot or something, that's just nitpicking at a little detail, but I still thought there was a good game from him. Augusto, for all that he does do, not the best at getting the ball into the box, but, I still thought that he, was showing pace along the wing, had some opportunities. I think 1 or 2 really that were decent chances there. Unfortunate the way that this game played. And then, like you said, I think the refereeing was a huge factor in it as well. It kind of like would negate any chance of tempo to be created by us and to really go after it. Lautaro was the only one who of the forwards, who just didn't look like he was really able to find his footing and make anything of it out there. He seemed very frustrated, obviously rightfully so. I'm not going to say that he was in the wrong. I think that a lot of calls were going Udinese's way, and a lot of things that, he was getting called for were like softer than what our own guys were experiencing. So it made no sense. There was no, consistency in that aspect, but I said I was going to take away some positives. Seeing how we were fighting to the last minute, that's something that we didn't see last year. Now, we could blame fatigue on a lot of that too. I'm sure there was, just tired legs all over the pitch, but these guys were trying so hard to get that second goal. Yes, it didn't come, and you could say, "Oh man, new year, same story." Yeah, if you want to just look at the scoreline, yes, new year, same story, absolutely. But if you actually watched this game and saw the effort that was being, portrayed all over the pitch, the chances that we were creating, again, I know you're probably gonna say, well, the finishing still wasn't there, for sure. But a lot of times too, you would just see us kind of like kicking the ball around outside the 18 and not even taking a shot. Now, like they were just trying to get it to Pio, trying to get, Boni was trying to get in there. He had a good chance. Zielinski ripped a shot from outside the box, got his own rebound, shot it again. And that's kind of when chaos can happen. The ball can ping pong. It could have landed on somebody's foot. You saw the one with Bisek there too late in the game where that kind of just bounced and I forgot whose chest it hit, and then Thuram brought it down, laid it off again. Like, just an unfortunate one. It really was just an unfortunate one. And when you have 10 guys who are getting behind the ball, you're always going to struggle to be able to find that glimpse of space to be able to get a shot on target anyway. So I admire the fight. I admire the mentality of the players. Kivu as well for going for it. Hey, I got nothing. Like, you're already, like, I liked it. You're already losing. Only thing that can happen is you lose worse. Whatever. Like, go for it. Go all out. Like,
a lot of managers would be nervous about losing the shape because, they'll get hit on the counter for the 3-1. And I do think that there's an element of like a player's mentality of, I don't fucking care if it's a 3-1 or a 4-1. We got to score another goal. And like you were saying, like they put 10 men behind the ball and we were fighting. It's hard to overcome a team that is as physically dominant as Udinese when you don't have dribblers. Like there needs to be an element of like pumping the ball in the box. The through ball is not there. This is not a matter of, oh, no one was making the run. They're playing the deepest line you possibly can. And then to deal with the referee who's buying into what they're selling and, calling a foul on Inter every 10 seconds, like that's incredibly difficult to overcome. Was there a move that didn't occur that you think was a mistake? So, for example, Pavard, De Vrij, Juve, Fratesi, Luis Enrique, all on the bench, not used.
I guess this is one of those games where maybe Fratesi could have gotten, his usual, I don't know how the ball ended up on your foot, but you got the goal kind of instance. That might have been the only one. I don't think you risk. Honestly, I'm going to say this, and people, you could take it however you want. I don't think this game would have been good for Diouf, and I also don't think that he should feature in the Juve game for having the poor cameo that he did in the first match of the season. No fault. I'm not going to, again, like I said, I'm not going to crucify him for that. But I wouldn't want him to have that again against the Juventus. And then like that just like destroys his mentality potentially. So I think it was good that Kivu kind of preserved him. I don't think bringing on a Pavard or De Vrij would have made a difference. I don't think. I'm glad he didn't bring on defenders. That's something that Inzaghi would have done, and it would have drove me crazy. I'm like, what the heck is the point of you bringing on another center back when we're trying to get a goal here? I think Fratesi is the only one that kind of makes sense. And one
Luis
thing,
Enrique, maybe do a little dribble magic.
I still haven't seen any dribble magic, so I don't even know if he can dribble. I know I'm hating, but I don't know. Like maybe I don't know. I still think Fratesi would have been the first choice of those names that didn't come on. I think Fratesi would have been the one. Like if we had a 6 sub, I would have wanted Fratesi over Juve, and maybe, or I'm sorry, over Luis Enrique, and maybe you take off, Lautaro, and you let him be like a fourth forward or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Fratesi or Luis Enrique could have been a play. I could also have seen a world where maybe you would have pulled Acerbi or Bisek immediately before the start of the second half for Pavard or De Vrij, and just kind of say
different.
like,
yes, okay, if you want to do it that way, I'm looking at it as like we still have like whatever, the whole second or the last 10-15 minutes, really. That's what I was kind of picturing. But
yeah, I almost as a way to say that was unacceptable. You're coming out like, to Bisek or to Acerbi.
I would have been okay with that.
Yeah. All right. Management.
How do we sell? How do we sell them?
How do we sell them is a good. It's a good question. We knew coming into this last portion of the summer a player that can skip by their man and a center back.
Mm-hmm.
This game absolutely exposed those as being not manufactured issues by the fan base, but legitimate reasons why Interisti would be pissed with how this summer has gone as far as the Mercato, because they are holes that I think a lot of people that watch football don't know what they're talking about, but Inter Twitter didn't get this one wrong. They didn't get these two specific issues wrong all summer. Kivu's going to have to answer the questions after the match, but the reality is, like, this management, again, it is one match, but they failed to provide him with the optionality that this team absolutely needs, and if they did have, could dominate this league.
I mean, what do you want me to say? Like, I agree with you. I also want to say, like, if we look at the management and we look at the way that they're talking and how stupid, I believe it was before the match, Marotta was talking and he said, I don't think nothing will happen in the market. The squad's balanced. And
the numbers that pisses me off.
Yeah. And all of this was done with the consultation with the coach. Let's be honest. You kind of told him the situation. He doesn't really have a say in what it is.
Which is what we said when we were predicting the coach.
Yeah. Yeah, like that's exactly what it was. And that's exactly how it is going. I'm sure he is clamoring. Like, that's the thing that's frustrating. You had the 40, let's say 45 million, 42 plus bonuses, however you want to look at it, to offer for Lookman, but you couldn't take 20, 25 to go get Jaquet or go get Alexandro or something. Like, where did the money go? Why is it available for one player, but if you know that there's another glaring weakness that's less money, and it also kind of fits your criteria of being a young player who is able, to have resale value under 30 million or whatever the number is, 25 million, then why can't we go after them? Like, why isn't Jaquet doing his medical right now to potentially be the starting, center back come November, December, whatever? You let Acerbi or De Vrij ease him into it, and then he's able to take over. Why is this not the case? And a major concern, and look, I know you picked Inter to win the Scudetto, and I give you a lot of credit for that. I still think that, unfortunately, if things are going to happen like we saw yesterday with Napoli, Conte, no matter how bad you play, Conte somehow gets the 3 points. It's amazing and frustrating at the same time. Like, amazing when he is your coach, frustrating as a neutral or not as a rival, whatever. That might be the thing why I leaned on Inter being second. But I also think that it's more realistic because you didn't properly reinforce what this man, desperately needed. You knew even at the end of last season, with the way PSG cut us up on the back end, that defense was an important position that needed to be filled. Whether that had to come with, a sale, I would have been fine selling. If 32 million really came for Bisek, for what we spent 3.5-4 million for him from that Danish club.
7.5 in payments to be made over like a span of 3 or 4 years.
That's why it was that low. Yeah, because we broke it. We were able to spread it over. Insane. So 32 million, you make, let's say, a $24 million profit on a guy who's not that great. Like that looks great on the books. I hope with the closing hours here that something is able to, like, look how fast the InterViews deal came about. Nobody even heard the name until it was already announced that he was an Inter player, and maybe that'll be the case with something else here.
The market, I think you hit the nail on the head with the market opportunity thing and like funds being available for one player, not the other. Just I watch a lot of football, and I'm not one of these people who feels like, oh, this player, like cornerstone, we lose him, our whole season is fucked. If you are smart, there are tons of players that can do a job. Tons of players under the age of 26 that are 20 to 25 million euros. Tons of them. Those opportunities do exist. And to be told, like, we don't see much on the market, like, are you looking? Are you looking? Because there's, for a center back, and for a player that can beat his man, there's at least 10 names for either that fall into that specific category. Under 26, 20 to 25 million. Those players exist. So to sit on your laurels, like, I'm sorry, but it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
Agreed.
And the Interisti, like, they should feel, we've been to the Champions League final 2 out of the last 3 years, and we're competing for Scudetti. We probably should have had more, and our coach was a big reason why that wasn't the case.
Should have had 4. We should have had 4.
Of all the crazy shit Cassano says, like, he's not wrong in saying we've been the strongest team in Italy for the past 4 years and only have 1 Scudetto to show for it. For me, it's just unacceptable that they've gone about this in a certain way, and it was kind of poetic, right? That the game, with 24 hours to go in the transfer window, completely exposes the needs that Interisti have been telling you, like, go get these guys, and you've been saying we're fine. I'm sorry, but like that is the universe telling Beppe and Piero and the rest of the management team, Oak Tree, Captain Ralph, whoever you want to say is involved, like, you guys are wrong. You're wrong. This is what could happen to your team if you don't find the opportunities that definitely fucking exist. So, yeah, that's upsetting. All right, let's see what else to talk about this game, and then we'll get to your questions. I think the last thing that I really want to touch on is Pio. It's his Serie A debut. Patrick Kendrick made a tweet yesterday that had Interisti, or tweet 2 days ago that had Interisti up in arms about, the merits of Francesco Pio Esposito getting called up to the national team. Obviously, he doesn't score today. I did not see anything that would make me feel like the kid is not ready and an absolute weapon off the bench in certain situations. What did you think of our own making his debut today?
Thrilled. I thought he played, a pretty sound game. You saw the strength that he has to be able to hold off his man, allow, when the ball is played to him, if he has to hold it up and wait for others to move into space, he has that strength. I thought he had a little bit of the flair with that flick that he played through that just narrowly missed Thuram there. He obviously, we know his strength in the air. And it would be incredible to have, him really come good for us. He'd be the first one since technically Federico Di Marco, and even though there are a lot of frustrating matches with him, he still is one of the better, well, probably the best player in the last 10 years to come from our academy. And now seeing Pio, he's clearly looks like he could be the best of the 3, Esposito brothers. So I'm hopeful. I don't think that he is shy from the pressure, which is a good thing. You know, you want a guy who has a bit of confidence in himself, especially from the striker position. I just hope that we allow him to grow in a good way and not try to like force the spotlight on him or force him to be something that he's not ready to be quite yet. Not saying that he can't start a match here or there. Like who says he can't start the game against Cremonese? I think that he would, that'd be a good opportunity for him. And especially going up against someone as strong as, Bashirotto in the back line there, that maybe that would be a good test for him because we know, his strength as a center back, just physical strength. I mean, I'm excited for him. I think, him getting the award too today for the best young player in this, or the best player in Serie A B, which I thought that was a little surprising, but I didn't see the whole, league, of course. Amazing, and I think who knows? Maybe he'll have a Serie A MVP, in his cupboard in the next 4 or 5 years, for all we know. So
he didn't get a ton to work with today, but I think the way that I'd remark on this performance, the same way as last week, where I talked about the thing that I was most impressed with Sucic was the maturity that he had in that moment to lay it off to Bavard instead of taking the shot, just smart game IQ. I would say the moment today for Pio that gave me the same feeling was that, flick on with the back heel into Thuram's path, where that was like, he's got defenders all over him. Like, you can possess the ball and like try to find someone in front of you, or you can try to make something happen, knowing that you are one of 3 forwards on the pitch and they're all right next to you. You have the talent and the ability to play a deft little touch right behind you into space, and he had the wherewithal to do it. That's impressive for me. I'm sorry, I know it didn't result in anything, but those are things that like get me excited that they will come off for this kid in the future. I really like what I saw from him. Same with Boni. I thought Boni entered with a lot of energy. He definitely is, has the salta al uomo. Thuram did the same thing. These are players that you can absolutely work with. I don't know if you have any words to say about Boni before we get into listener questions here.
No, I liked him. His play out wide. I thought he did a good job as well. Being able to drive in and try to dribble past his man, which is something we've been starving for, right? I feel like we've been clamoring for it for a couple of years now, asking for players like that. I think that there is going to be a lot more opportunities for him to continue to be a big factor for us. And listen, not that I'm wishing injury on Thuram or Lautaro, but I do feel safe with both these guys as options now, as opposed to when we had, Taremi and Arnautovic, where, you can go into a big lull. I feel like these guys will be able to hold their own at the very least. It may not turn into, insane numbers of goal scoring this year, but I think like they're with the proper development and the, right mentorship from the current guys, that we could have, some very special players on our hands, and Boni being just another example of them.
The current guys on the team, plus a coach like Kivu who will play them and can give them, the kind of experience that they need in order to develop into the next version of Thuram and Lautaro. All right, let's do listener questions. Peter Jordan. Were Inter really good or were Torino really bad? This game suggests the latter. Bisek has been headless, slow to move. Inter cannot keep or regain possession like they did last week. Frustrating that this is close to the strongest lineup and we have one day to try and buy help. Touch on the were Inter really good or Torino really bad? Because for me, there's nothing comparable between these two games. Like, they're very specific situations. And actually, Inter did relatively well with what they had to come up against, which we've touched upon: the physicality, the shit housing. They could have had more, and some things went against them. But do you buy into that at all? That Torino were just really bad, and that's why last week looked a lot different than how today looked?
I don't think it's more so that Torino were really bad. I just think we played the best game that we could play. And the way things kind of like played out for us, allowing us to really control with the high press, dictate the tempo ourselves more so. I feel like Udinese, you have to give them credit. Like, this isn't, we're not playing in the Saudi Arabian league where there's two good teams and the rest are just punching bags for the league. Like, Udinese is a quality side. Udinese historically has done phenomenal levels of scouting and been able to find talent that can, this Atta kid couldn't tell you where he came from.
I liked him last year. I wish I would have said something about it because now it looks like I'd be jumping on the bandwagon.
He's jumping on the bandwagon. I knew it.
No, I promise you.
I'm kidding. Listen, I did not. I thought he was a very good midfielder. I was more so excited for Petrowski just because I had heard him and I knew about him from Ludogorets. He didn't do anything. So seeing Atta and then Davis, I thought that he did really good with hold up, and he's such a strong forward that I'd be honestly. It's crazy how he wasn't picked up by a Fiorentina or something, because I feel like he is ready for that step to then eventually go to somebody bigger. But that guy was awesome. I mean, we know about Solet. I liked what I saw from Christensen. Like, these guys do a phenomenal job of finding talent that they're able to get cheap and then sell on later. And their coach, he did a phenomenal job with what he had last year, and he is a good tactician. I don't know about him really so much as a man manager. It does seem like his players do like him by the way they celebrated a goal with him and stuff. But he had obviously more experience than Kiwu does for sure, and he was able to come up with a game plan that was a bit frustrating for Inter to deal with. And with the way that he was able to just swarm that midfield and frustrate us anytime we tried to gain possession. Smart fouling, too, that was able to stop any chances of developing any momentum and stuff. You have to tip your cap to it. It's not so much that Torino was bad. It's that Udinese is better than people give them credit for.
Yeah. Second, what you say about Kostarun Yajic, good coach. And that was the only way his team could win the game today, by playing that way. And they succeeded. So don't want to take anything away from them. At Zaid 206 GTI, Hakan is the main culprit while we play this bad. Bisek continues to hand out scoring opportunities. He needs to wake up and increase his focus and awareness. Agree on Bisek. Hakan being the main culprit in that first half. I don't know. I feel like around the 23rd minute, from the 23rd minute to the end of the half, Inter's intensity as a whole, as the entire team completely dropped. I don't know if that is entirely on Hakan. Do you see it differently?
No, I don't see it any differently, to be honest. I agree with you, is what I'm saying with that. I actually thought, though, that once I thought we were slow into the game for the first 20 minutes. And I think after that is when we were started. I thought I wouldn't say the intensity, but I thought that we kind of grew into the game from that moment on. I didn't think the intensity was down. I just thought that some players were a little lost more so than intensity not being there. And you could see a little bit of frustration with Sucic. I felt like he got fouled at least 3-4 times in the first half. Where he was able to pick up the ball, he made a good move on one, got fouled on the second guy. I don't think it's all on Hakan. He had a bad game, and I did say I thought maybe he's not there yet mentally. Potentially, it's very possible, but I'm not going to sit here and say that this whole game is on him. Where I think it's more so on Bisek and Acerbi personally, and of course a stupid penalty by Dumfries. But
Nick Costa, has Marotta's time as a competent executive passed? Is he the Lou Lamoriello? Is it Lamoriello or Lamoriello?
Lamoriello, yeah.
Of Serie A. Once great, now old and outdated. More moves needed to be made. They weren't. It's embarrassing that a big club like Inter still trots out Mickey. Nick, has his time as a competent executive passed? I
say yes. I don't
think this summer has certainly been fairly incompetent.
But listen, Julian, you're gonna love me for this, but if this can go back to the way he handled the Skriniar situation, for if you look at the players that have left or that have been sold, and the manner in which they've been sold, outside of Onana and Lukaku, I would say everything else was a disappointment. And I'm including Hakimi. You know, you could get excited for the money that was brought in. You should have got more, especially for a player of that level of talent with that caliber, who at that time, you would say is the best right back in the world when he was at Inter. And to only get 70 million for him after you spent 45, that's a bit of a letdown. Like, you should have got, I think, at least 85 personally for a play. And that's even with, forget about just COVID. Like, what would have happened if you didn't sell him? You would have just folded as a club? Is that what would have happened? I don't think so. We see the debt that other clubs are able to incur, and they don't go under. Look at Barcelona, for example. You're going to tell me that they were just able to survive? They didn't have to sell Messi when all that stuff was going on? Anyway, I digress. You did great selling Lukaku, and you did great selling Onana, especially when you did. Now seeing how awful he's been. Like, can you imagine if he was doing this at Inter? Or what would have happened in the Barcelona semifinal last year if we had Onana instead of Sommer? But I don't like, we shoot ourselves in the foot too many times by talking to the media. Like, he tries to be this mental, chess player where, he tries to be a little cryptic and You didn't get what we should have got for Brozovic. It started off as 25, then it was, 20, and then it ended up on 18.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you ruined that negotiation. They
got nothing for Inzaghi.
Yeah, you got nothing for Inzaghi. Ruben Amorim was bought by Manchester United, and he's not even doing anything special. They paid money for him. You have other players. You got nothing for Skriniar. You had offers on the table, and you did nothing. You have players openly calling you out for not treating the players that you have in-house with respect. And I'm talking about Perisic, which, funny enough, he was there at the game today. I kind of wish he was on the pitch because I think that he would have been able to do a job too. You just continue to have things blow up in your face in such a manner. How are you still here? And I'll see, though, you can't get away with this unscathed either. Like, I think you've done a bad job of scouting and bringing in players. You don't do enough in South America, and the players you do find in South America turn out to be massive flops, i.e. Gabriel Barbosa or Kurlan. Like, he was the guy with all these things. It wasn't Branca. Branca was already gone already. So, like, even you can go as far back as that. Ruben Bota as well. Like, what
He's also done too many favors for his friends. Certain relationships with Pastorello, Riso, and so forth.
Yeah, like no sporting director should be friends with any agents. I don't care who you are. You shouldn't be. Because, of course, you're going to give players better deals and favor them and try to hook them up and bail them out. And, like,
the idea is that it helps you. Like,
and it doesn't help us. It helps other clubs.
But for some reason,
doesn't help us. And I think same thing, you could throw that with Marotta, too kind to other teams and squads, and allowing them to get what they want when they want it, when they don't want to work with us or do us any favors. Zalewski should have been held hostage until we got Lookman. Or he should have been a counterweight to Lookman. Hey, you don't have to spend 17 million. That's what you were willing to pay. Take that off the price, and here you go. You wanted 50, now you get 33 plus Zalewski.
I mean, I would have even done like 35 plus Zalewski.
I would have done, honestly,
maybe 40.
I probably might have done 40 plus Zalewski if that's really what you wanted. But, like, no favors, nothing. No. We'll give you what you want, what you need. It's pathetic, and I think it's time for both of them to go. And I know Marotta's contract ends in 2027, but I don't think we should wait. But knowing how Oak Tree moves, we are going to be waiting, unfortunately.
He also owns 2% of the club, so
you could own 2% of the club. That doesn't mean you should have any, power as president.
No, I know. I'm, more so like I don't know that this is going to happen exactly the way Interisi wanted to. All right, let's try to get through these and the speak pipes quickly. Peter Jordan, a game of ifs, buts, and maybes, but overall should tell management that more is needed to add depth to the squad. Last week masked the deficiencies. There were clear view this evening. Credit to Udinese, took their chance and got the bounce of the ball, pony up and buy Solet. Yeah, Solet would be quite a good fit for this team. I don't think much more needs to be said. He would be perfect. The level of grit and physicality alone would be a huge improvement over some of the people we have back there. At M. Sitzeki, should we have sold Bisek? It's his third year at Inter, and he still has these weak defensive performances. He just lets players run at him. Acerbi and Hakan are also finished. Definitely should have sold Bisek if it meant that we were getting Leone. Acerbi finished. Hakan, I think, needs to get his head into it. I don't know that I want to just say he's finished. How about you?
Yeah, I don't want to say Hakan's finished yet, but I agree. He needs to get his head, on straight. And if you're already thinking, or you're still, pining over Galatasaray, well, then blame them for not paying the money that we wanted, because they seem to throw that cash around for other players. No problem, like Wilfred Sengo and Osimhen. But you didn't want to come pay for, Hakan, who wanted to supposedly come pay for you guys. That's on them, if you're really that unhappy. So just get over it and let's move on.
At Jerk, how have teams from the Premier League signed mediocre players from other leagues to huge contracts with huge transfer fees, and we can't transfer Fratesi to the Premier League for 40 million? Is this our management not knowing how to negotiate? No, I'm going to push back on this. It has nothing to do with a negotiation from our management. A team will put forth an offer that has the most favorable terms to them. If it's their belief that they can offer a loan with an obligation to buy for 40 million down the line, and if they believe Inter will accept it, that's what they're going to offer. It's not a matter of our management is negotiating for that specific structure. That's what they're being offered. Okay.
Plain and simple. That was, yeah.
All right, let's do Speak Pipe. Gino Panino up first.
Gino Panino from Vancouver. Very frustrating game with Inter. Kivu got it wrong from the start, starting Bisek. Intensity dropped drastically after the first game. Not impressed with our midfield. Chala was not there, just there physically. Finishing needs to be better. Thuram looks like he's on a holiday. They need to wake up fast, or they're going to drop real fast. Thanks for the shout-out last week. Gino Panino from Vancouver.
I don't agree with any, all of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with some of that, not all of that.
Also, the Thurams, I think we're both on the same page about Kivu not getting it right from the start. I don't think Bisek will, I don't know, you can't account for that necessarily, although maybe moving forward you might be able to. But Thuram was in it. Mm-hmm. The only bad thing that happened was he couldn't get that header on target in the second half.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the guy scored 2 big goals for us, obviously in the first match. So it's like you can't say he's not in it when he came out of the gate swinging. So, Gino Panino from Vancouver, appreciate you always calling in and being able to give your thoughts. I agree with you on great. Now I forgot which part I did agree with. Oh yeah, we agree. We said the starting there, but
all right. This one's from Anonymous. I hope he doesn't get us canceled.
Oh boy.
What's up, guys? I'm back. Wish it was on better circumstances, but I heard you throw up the bat signal last week. I could not watch the game because I work at a school, so those Monday games fucking suck for me. But I watched all this one, so I'm going to try to focus on the positives, which is going to be hard to do, considering my Yankees also just fucking lost to the White Sox. But look, we were the better side from start to finish in that game. 3 big mistakes cost us the game, and that's what happens. And you got to overcome a side like Udinese. Yes, was the refereeing bad? Yes, were they flopping? Yes, were they time wasting? That's what they're gonna do. You know how you stop that? You don't go down 2-1 to a side like Udinese, especially at home. You just don't. I mean, that first goal was great, and the one thing I love about Kivu ball is the direct approach that went through the middle. You don't see that with Inzaghi last year. However, the one thing I was worried about coming into this year, and it reared its head today, is I don't know if we have the personnel for this press, this high line, because the 2 players who I was worried about were probably our 2 worst players today. Çalhanoğlu was was poor today. But even worse was Acerbi. Acerbi was fucking abysmal today. I mean, that second goal is on him. What are you doing not stepping up? You just continue to back up and allow him to set himself up for a shot. What are you doing? You're 37 years old. The one thing you're supposed to have if you don't have legs is a fucking brain. What are you doing?
Oh, he cut off.
I think he got cut off.
He probably didn't know that. Yeah, there's a limit. But
I think maybe we got to have Casey on the show one time. That was correct. All of it.
I want him, Stefan Rossi. Always like having him on. I know you guys were asking for Anth Privitera from Inter Worldwide. We have been in communication trying to find out. It's just tough. I'm in Pacific time. Alessandro's on the East Coast, and he's in Australia. So like, what works for him, I'm still at work. What works for me, he's at work. Like, so we're trying to figure it out for you guys. We want him on. We're also trying to get like some other supporters of rivals to preview matches. So hopefully we can start getting more people on here and kind of sharing some thoughts. But yeah, we should try to get Casey on.
All right. I think we've said our piece on this match.
I'm not done. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We now head into the international break. I hope everyone that lives in the States had a really nice Labor Day weekend. And Derby d'Italia coming up next. In the words of the great Roberto Scarpini, Forza ragazzi, forza ragazzi, forza ragazzi.